third plenary session that is devoted to financing cleaner transport, policy objectives and case studies. And very happy to see you still here in this room to dive into a further dimension that was announced already by Jean-Éric Paquet in the first session, where we are trying to get into very practical grips on how we are translating also this part of our, I would say, TEN-T and CEF portfolio into practice. And I would be very happy to take you into a few slides myself as an introduction. I'm Harold Ruiters. I'm the director of the MOVE Directorate responsible for investments, innovation and sustainable transport. I've been around for a number of years in the TEN-T and Connecting Europe facility, and I'm very happy that I can moderate this panel with the distinguished guests, Aivaz Tarikovs, who is the project promoter from the Riga Transport Company, with Mrs. Katarina Kavadar from Eco Fund Councillor in Slovenia, and Neil Valentine from the European Investment Bank. What we're trying to do this afternoon is to bring to you a number of practical proposals and case studies in order for you to understand how some of the project promoters in Europe have already been experimenting today the possibilities of innovative financing and the way they have been going about in a very practical terms, so that afterwards, when we come to a discussion between you and us, you can really raise questions to the gentleman and the lady here on the podium. How have you been faring with your project? How did you came to this solution? Because we know that we are still in very early days. I mean, it's not yet today that we are having very well set frameworks for orienting your project to the right or to the left. I mean, there are many possibilities, and we would like to grasp all of them also in this very initial stages. And let me first start a little bit with the point of departure. The TEN-T regulation foresees that we can support and promote the decarbonization of transport with innovative and sustainable transport technologies. And that clear, I would say, mandate within the TEN-T has done also a translation into the Connecting Europe facility, where we see here on the slide that we can, of course, then also co-fund these more let's say, innovative and sustainable transport parts of the TEN-T through the Connecting Europe facility. And of course, this should even be seen in a wider perspective, because also Aivaz will talk about the possibility that he has been using from the fuel cell and hydrogen joint undertaking, which is within the Horizon 2020 envelope. And you see on this slide that we are having even more possibilities than we have been talking about so far today. It's not only Connecting Europe facility, FC and blending, but it's even also the research component which is available, with also interesting co-funding and financing possibilities, because Neil, you will say a few words also on ELENA, which is coming out of Horizon 2020. And so it's quite a panoply of possibilities that we are sketching today. And in fact, what we are doing bit by bit is moving all projects from Horizon bit by bit to Connecting Europe facility. So research deployment market-sided in CEF, and then ultimately we are always trying then to go to real market deployment with FC and with loans from banks. And this, I would say, continuum is used to its full, but it's also completely mixed still today. And in order to get that clear to you, we will have these explanations here from the distinguished speakers. What you can see on this slide is a map, and this is the result of the Connecting Europe facility work. You see a huge number of already alternative fuel supply points in Europe. It's not yet an entire network. You see gaps as well. But I think that after the call of 2016 being completed this year in July, the lines that you see already emerging will be more complete even, and will be bit by bit providing this real innovative and clean transport network that our Commissioner has been talking about this morning. It is also evaluated quite to a detail in a recent study where it was put forward that getting the alternative fuel supply on all of the corridors will have a cost of 1.5 billion, and a part thereof will be done via grants, but other parts will be done via blending or via innovative. And the study is recent, it's now available. Coopers Waterhouse Price has been doing that for us, and it is quite a good study to see how we will complete in the future this alternative fuel infrastructure. But of course we're looking a bit wider beyond the grants. So the blending call will be explained tomorrow morning by my colleague Stéphane Wacky in the first session, plenary session of tomorrow morning. It has been launched, as indicated by the Commissioner, on the 8th of February with two cut-off dates, 14th of July and the 30th of November. And we are expecting also in that, I would say, part of the jigsaw puzzle for solutions for innovative and sustainable, that the blending call will play a very concrete role, because we have been having such projects already on the ground. As the Commissioner said, it is not something of the future, it is something that we are already experimenting in projects today. And beyond the blending call, so grants, blending, we also are looking, of course, to then the further possibilities in the future. I'm here mentioning the different fields of the blending call, but then I should now go to the financial instruments, and I will be very short because Neil Valentine will be talking about them, about the cleaner transport facility that we have, about ELENA, and we are of course there having a whole set of instruments available, and also the speakers here on the podium will address them in some extent. So this being said, I would now like to jump to the panel discussion, and I would like to invite Ivars Starikovs to his presentation. Ivars, it's a very innovative setup that you have done in Riga. We are looking very much forward how you have been putting this project together. I would like to invite you to tell us a bit how this project works, how you constructed it, how you have been putting all the puzzle pieces together for financing this project, which I think is very innovative and very much blended. And then what are the lessons that you have learned already, you yourself, and I know that you also even want to talk a little bit about future developments and projects that you are going to see very soon in your country, in Latvia and in Riga. So the floor is yours, and thank you very much for your contribution, Ivars.
I will use the opportunity to show presentation.
Okay. Please, you have to put it.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, that's honor to see you, all of you, still here. Let's say even that's it's too late, but I will try to be short as much as possible, not to use your time with all the technical details. First of all, what I would like to explain, I really appreciate this name, promoter. But basically, I'm coming from scientific, let's say, society, because I'm still employee of Latvian Academy of Sciences, and we was approached by Riga City Council and Public Transport Company in 2013 by having a problem with air quality, because that was the, let's say, case. There was an issues with air quality, and then we start as a scientist investigate what we can do for a city. So basically, the main reason why I'm here is because we are funded for a project H2 Nodes, which you can see shortly described on the screen. Basically, we have a network of 3 refueling stations, which should provide refueling availability of the hydrogen for passenger vehicles and heavy-duty vehicles in the city of Pärnu in Estonia, in Riga in Latvia, and in the city of Arnhem. This is in Netherlands. And one of the most important, at least for me, most important part is a demonstration of innovative solution. We will show in Riga trolleybuses with hydrogen range extenders. I will come later to these reasons why we became that. So here you can see the map. So basically, this map, which was showed by Mr. Reuters, so it shows more development of the hydrogen as itself much better in, let's say, Central Europe, but in our part, so we realized that, first of all, there is no infrastructure, so therefore we can talk about a lot of good about alternative fuels that it should be needed, but one of the main components in Riga case was that we are providing station and demand of the fuel in one hand. So this means that it can provide business case in long term, also for public transport operator, that it's reasonable, it's not anymore just subsidized business. Most important part, as I mentioned, 2030 was very beginning of this project. 2015, February, we have submitted to Commission. End of 2015, we got grant approval, but all that time we was hardly working to be ready to implement this project. So basically, we started with the studies about situation, what we have today on the streets. Second, we, let's say, proactively starting involvement in other activities across Europe. So also mentioned previously fuel cell and hydrogen joint undertaking, which basically is joint technology initiative for hydrogen technologies, and we are actively participate there to collect as much as possible, let's say, good and bad stories from another projects, from other cities, to learn and to implement our own story with successful results. And what I would like last engineering study, that was also one of the key elements which gave us strong feeling that we are looking in the right direction, because this is the part which in a lot of the projects not considered till the end. So this means that we can talk about pilots, like 1, 2, 3 vehicles. But if we should talk about mass implementation, this is a totally different scenarios. So, and in most of the cases, what I have seen across Europe, so it's not taken in consideration. So this means if we talk about one or another direction, we should always keep in mind like final scenario where we are going. So it's not that I'm promoting only one fuel, but this is the very serious argument always which should be kept in mind if we consider scenarios for alternative fuels. Honestly speaking, I would like to say I love hydrogen, but I believe in physics. So therefore, finally, all the figures and the truth where we should go will be provided during calculations. So, and I don't believe that there is one like a happy story which can fit to everybody. City to city, it will depend from local situation, energy infrastructure, let's say driving routes, characteristics of topography, a lot of things which should be taken into account by assessing each pilot activities. Basically, how we started, we just took Riga city, let's say public transport routes, put them on the paper, and then start assessment what we can have. So basically, as first, we was cutting out, let's say, because of air quality issues, we had left on the table only zero emission technologies. So this means batteries and hydrogen, so as only the option. So then we assessed existing trolleybus route. Unfortunately, it's not, let's say, across Europe, it's not so a lot of cities implemented, but in Eastern Europe, it's still a lot of cities using trolleybuses. What is the beauty of trolleybus? What I really love, because trolleybus is the one of the vehicles who is using energy directly from the catenary to the wheels. So with less energy losses, and if we look on energy consumption, so the trolleybus is only the one who can provide direct energy usage with very small loss of energy. So, and then we decided, so trolleybus, so this is cost-effective operation, what we can do for that. So, and then we, by assessing existing routes, we chose the one of the routes, partly covered by trolleybus catenary, and then we start calculations, what can be the options, how we can improve this to replace existing diesel bus routes by having trolleybus, but with innovative solution like a range extender, fuel cells on the board. Yeah. So, and then finally, we got the figures. Figures, of course, sounds good, but don't take them as a Bible. So this is only the direction where it can go. But definitely, so in our case, that was a specific route where if there is a working trolleybus, then it should drive without wires around 70 kilometers per day. So roughly 10 times per 7 kilometers. So finally, energy consumption used on this part without catenary, it's because of the main reason that trolleybuses itself consumes less energy. So this means more cost-effective transport. And then we should have this gap covered with more cost, let's say, effective solution. Batteries was unfortunately, let's say, used as one of the options, but for batteries there is technical restrictions because of the weight and the charging characteristics which is needed. So in this specific route, batteries was not considered because to provide this route length, there will be heavy, let's say too much heavy as existing solutions, so therefore we should take some passengers out. So therefore from transport company we had very straight restrictions. Here is the vehicle as we have today. Do whatever you want, but don't go out from those restrictions which you have today. So this means passenger capacity, energy consumption, and space which is used for all the power sources on the vehicle. So that was our restrictions, how we done this. Also, this is learnings about what is done around Europe. So, and Fuel Cell and Hydrogen Joint Undertaking has provided one of the studies. Okay, for today's situation, it's pretty old already, let's say 4 years. It's not actual anymore, but what is the very important lessons learned from other cities? So, comparison of existing alternatives. So finally, operator is the one who is dictating the rules. So we should follow the needs of the operator and then find technical solution which can provide that. So finally we got, this is a picture of a trolleybus bus, or I would say traction power box. It's just for a picture, it's just got it off because pantograph was looking, let's say, out from the picture. So, but anyway, basically, what we have electric drive system, hydrogen cylinders on the roof. In trolleybus case, we will have only 4 cylinders, but because of the city of Riga is considering also implementation of hydrogen buses. So this is the basically same vehicle, but with different name. And the red boxes in the end of the vehicle, so those are battery packs. So message what I would like to say, there is no one lucky story for which will be battery or hydrogen. No. Finally, this is hybridized system which can work only in combination both of those technologies. It's more inside view, so this means fuel cell system and all the power source in the roof. Battery pack is in the back of the vehicle. So, and this is the overall view of what we have today as a final solution, and we are expecting that first vehicle will be delivered to Riga in May. This means that first vehicle we will have a teething period of the vehicle and testings and let's say check during the next 6 months after May. So, and then after the end of the year there will be delivered additional 9 vehicles. So this means we will have really study on market-sided implementation of new technology that we can assess everything around that, starting operation, implementation, expectations, what we had for operational costs and what we had achieved. So we will have a full story of that. Beside that, by implementing vehicles, so very important part is infrastructure. I previously mentioned, so this is one of the key questions before start to implement whatever technologies is the assessment of existing infrastructure. So therefore, we talked all the bus depots across Riga. So basically there is 2 bus depots and 2 trolleybus depots. And we assessed infrastructure around them. So, and finally, there was the winner. So this is the Jelgava Street depot. Next to him, up of this red box, there is like a triangle. There will be put the next hydrogen station, which is the part of this project. So here is just some of the drawings. But also, one of the beauty of the station will be that we will have both refueling opportunities for passenger vehicles, which will be publicly accessible. And the bus dispenser, which is only for use of public transport, will be placed 63 meters away from the station inside the depot territory. So this means that there's a lot of technical opportunities which are not explained to the public, or let's say those options which are available are not explained very well. Maybe that's the problem of technology providers, but at least this sample, what we got as a final solution. So we will expecting that in May, June, we will have starting the test of the station. So a fully operational station will be from the middle of this year. So everybody is welcome. If you are interested to learn some more lessons about technical, practical, engineering parts, so very welcome to ask the questions and visit Riga to learn about it. Part of all this study, or let's say project, was also the further demand of the market. In Riga case, that was, let's say, further grow, or let's say next steps of replacing existing bus fleet. Therefore, again, this is combination. We was participating very actively in joint undertaking activities. So fuel cell and hydrogen joint undertaking has established like a framework of European cities. They are divided in 5 regional clusters. So, and each cluster have a common activities, common budgets, common, let's say, joint procurement activities to implement and first of all to provide the demand of the vehicles, that we can have the price reduction, because basically one of the key problems today is the price of the technology. So only, and that was also the philosophy and the reason why such clusters was established, was that only by joint procurement activities can be provided massive demand of the vehicles in the way that we can request from industry price reduction for the vehicles. So this is the project JAIA-1, which was approved end of the last year. Kickoff meeting was the end of the January. EIB was also participating. So let's say I'm proud that we are the ones who is like connecting all those options and financing instruments. But here is the map on the buses which will be implemented across the Europe during the next three to 4 years. So, and Riga is getting also additional grant for getting 10 fuel cell buses. So this means beside H2 nodes, which is funded by CEF, we will have also grant only for buses for also to be implemented in Riga. Some of the findings which I would like to mention, so as I mentioned previously, so for me as a scientist, that was the first restriction from my teacher. He said, you should love something, but you should be technology neutral when you are providing or giving advice to municipality. So therefore, as I mentioned before, so this is the most important part, the preparation of the project and maturity of it, and maturity of the idea, what we are presenting. So, and therefore, just as a reminder, so electric vehicles, those are in my heart, and those are most energy efficient vehicles. So therefore, everything what is around energy and usage of energy, I truly believe that at least the next, let's say, decades will be domination of electric drive systems in let's say, vehicle industry as itself. Second is, of course, energy security and diversity. This is the second moment, because also if we are looking on mass implementation of the vehicles, so we should take into consideration also, for example, grid blackouts. So in that case, if we are dependent only from battery buses, and there will be grid blackout, so all our buses will be just the boxes on the wheel. So therefore, this is also one of the facts which should not be forgotten. So I'm not saying that this is the restriction, but all those arguments should be taken in consideration. And of course, air quality and environment things. What's next? So for us as a scientist, that was quite exciting to be the ones who was creating this project. So, and we are proud to provide the good lessons learned, that combination of different funding bodies, how they can work in, let's say, synchronized actions, and how this overall story can fit in progress as itself. So, and therefore, we're still working, and we have a newest project, which I would like to, at least in a couple words, touch. So that was one of the newest, which I now allowed to present. So we was working last 2 years with the Latvian railway company and the Estonian railways. So this is shunting locomotive project. So basically, again, almost the same philosophy which we used in trolleybus project. So this means that traction power which is needed for heavy-duty applications can be used, especially, and should be used in urban areas where it makes biggest damage to the environment and citizens' health. And shortly, this is the first drawings which we had, and we are expected roughly within 1, maximum 2 years, should be start to operate in Riga, under operation of Latvian Railways. So this is the concept of hybrid fuel cell electric shunting locomotive, which can do the job very effective way. And we are expecting also in money saving way that it can also help save operators some money. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, and you're really passionate about your project as a scientist and also as a real believer, I think. Afterwards will certainly be questions to you because you are blending quite different instruments and sources together. So I guess that there will be some questions to you a little bit later. But I first would like to turn to our second speaker, Mrs. Katarina Kavadar. You are going to present to us the example of a national fund to support clean and sustainable investments, the EcoSklad of Slovenia. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I would like to greet all and thank for the opportunity to speak at this conference. Here my main goal is to present EcoFund as a global, not so much focused on a transport, but I would highlight some transport measures that we have. So my name is Katarina Kavadar and I'm working on Energy Advisory Network, offering free counseling for households all over Slovenia, mainly on investments for environment and also transport. And the other area of my expertise is public core for legal entities wanting to buy electric cars or plug-in hybrid electric cars. But let's go on with the presentation. What is EcoFund? This is a state-owned, 100% and specialized institution providing financial incentives for environmental investments in Slovenia. Of course, we are not the only one. We have more than 5 other players, but EcoFund works on both levels, on micro levels, when offering grants and loans for households, and also on macro level, offering grants and loans also for municipalities and legal entities. Ministries are mostly focused on cohesion funds. Then we have also Borzen, which supports feed-in tariffs for electricity from renewables. Then we have also some municipalities and public and commercial banks, which state-owned is also Seed Bank. So EcoFund was established in 1993 with environmental protection law, mainly because of ascension to EU membership, where our environmental standards were quite below the standards that were mainly for EU. So our EcoFund, this organization chart is offering us how we operate. In our supervisory board, we have Ministry of Environment and Spatial Planning, Ministry of Infrastructure, and Ministry of Finance. So they set all the policy measures, and EcoFund makes them a reality. Our objectives are, well, the first and the biggest one is offering the whole year our incentives, but this was not a reality before 2016. Now with different policy measures that we have, we can offer public calls that are open the whole year, and there is no stop and go effect anymore. Another general objective is, of course, financing environmental investments through different measures, which have, of course, lowering emissions and energy savings, and also some unexpected socio-economic effects. We were seeing a lot of gray economy decrease because of our application process, where investor wants to apply for a grant or a loan, has to have an application form. For example, this is one just on one paper. Of course, we wanted to make it very efficient, but beside application form, there is also a pro forma invoice, and after the investment conclusion, there has to be a invoice, also VAT paid, before we can transfer a grant or loan. So we see a lot of gray economy decrease, and on the other hand, also budgetary revenues increase. Green jobs are also one side effect of our eco-fund, and adaptation of building businesses in sustainable directions, because eco-fund has high criteria when applying environmental measures for grant or loans. This is just a few social effects that to point out. Of course, we have also specific objectives. This one I want to present is regarding energy efficiency decree, mainly Article 7, where Slovenia has an obligation that will produce energy savings on yearly basis. So this goal is separated to energy suppliers. Half of energy savings has to be met from their own funds, and their measures are mostly focused in industry. And then EcoFund has to have 262 gigawatt hours per year in energy savings. We have to achieve that goal with our measures that are mainly in households for buildings and transport. The decree on energy savings enabled us with financial sources for issuing these measures. This is some sort of a tax that all end users of energy, electricity, solid, liquid, or gas fuels are paying for the whole country. So the factors that made EcoFund become a reality goes all the way back into the 90s, where there were quite very few offers for soft loans. Also, we have a higher environmental standards if we wanted to go into EU. And there was a political consensus that all environmental investments should be in one place. So with environmental protection law, EcoFund was established. At the beginning, government offered us some funds so we could start operating, and these funds were from some privatization process, and in 1995 we also applied for a loan in International Bank for Research and Development to start publishing our own calls. So we got a loan to issue loans for ongoing projects in Slovenia. Nowadays, we are offering loans also from our earmarked assets that, as a revolving fund, we have them now, and we also have a loan in European Investment Bank to have the same instrument that we were having in 1995 to issue other public calls for Slovenian investors. In 1998, we also get some grants from international institutions so that we could have interest rates for our loans quite lower than commercial banks in financial market. Since we are a public fund, in 2008, a lot of policy changed, and we got new orders from Ministry of Infrastructure or Energy and Ministry from Environment. Therefore, we took the order to issue grants, and therefore we got two other financial sources, which is one is from a decree on energy savings I was talking before, and the other is a contract from funds from emission coupons that is called Climate Change Fund, administered by Ministry of Environmental and Spatial Planning. So these are actually all the funds that we disperse into Slovenian environment for investments. So, as you figured by now, we have two main instruments, grants and soft loans for environmental investments. A speciality is that with some calls we can combine loans with grants. I will go in detail later. So the other types of financing or raising activities are the energy advisory network that I lead. This is offering free, of course by demand, free advices to households. So we have more than 50 offices around Slovenia where specialized energy advisors are helping citizens for better environmental investments. Then we also have financing of awareness raising activities. This is like conference meetings and projects of NGO. For example, this one here, you have a logo of eco schools and eco kindergartens. All financial incentives are disbursed on behalf of public call. This means this is not a public tendering, but a public call. This is the whole year could be opened, and all investors should apply with application form, like this one I showed before. So let's go more into detail. What kind of project do we finance? I have delivered it within loans and grants because there are quite different measures. So for 2017, we have around 80 million euros at disposal. And here we have grants. Grants I have divided because on behalf of fundings that we get. So this one is on decree on energy savings. Here we are issuing 6 public calls. The first one is our biggest call, and we call it for the call for houses. So residential buildings could apply for a grant on solar heating system, biomass boilers, etc., and could get up to 30% of eligible costs. Or we also have a nominal limit. So, for example, if there is a heat pump costing 10,000 euro, you could get 2,000 or 30,000 euro for a grant. But nominally, we have another limit. You could get only 1,000 euro. So these two limits are presented here. Then the next call is for multi-residential buildings, where we have just 3 measures for facades, for roof insulation, and for regulation of heating system. Here also you could get up to 50% for eligible costs, but again there is a nominational limit. And for municipalities building new schools and kindergartens within nearly zero emission building standards, then we have 2 transport public calls for buying new electric cars, which is one for legal entities within the state aid process and standards, and then the one for households for electric cars. As I was told before, we have one of the highest grants for these electric cars in Europe, but we did disperse a lot of money, but still electric cars are not so popular here in this area of Europe. According to a fund, climate change fund sources, we have 3 different calls. The first one is actually for lowering energy poverty, where a grant could be up to 100% of eligible costs. It's mainly for new biomass boilers. The other one is also a transport call for municipalities for buying new hybrid electricity or energy-friendly buses for public transport. And the last one is right now is also closed, and is also for municipalities for charging station in protected natural areas. In area of loans, we have 4 different calls for projects mainly on area of air pollution, efficient use of energy, renewable sources, waste management, and wastewater treatment and supply. So the first one is for households, where you could get up to 100% of loan, and it could also be combined with a grant. So if you want, again, example for 10,000 euro for a heat pump, you could get 10,000 euro with a 3-month Euribor plus 1.2% here for 10 years. And then at the same time, you could apply for our grant, and you could get 1,000 euro of a grant. But this grant would be for lowering your loan at EcoSclad. This is a combination that we are using also for legal entities. And then another soft loan is for corporate sector. Again, 3 months Euribor plus 1.3%. Here you could just get up to 75% of eligible costs. Other sources has to be from private sector or others. We don't have a fixed cooperation here. Then another soft loan is to municipalities. Those measures are quite the same as called before, and another is for municipalities in building new kindergartens or school, and this one could also be combined with grants I mentioned before. These are all measures for soft loans, which I would not like to go into detail. I pointed out those who are just considering transport. So we have purchasing of electric or hybrid vehicles. This goes also for bicycles, motorcycles, or cars. And on the other side, for legal entities, we have purchasing of gas, electricity powered vehicles, and also vehicles for waste collection. Well, the last question I got was, how do we cooperate with private investors and banks? As I mentioned before, one cooperation with banks is that we applied for loan in European Investment Bank. The other one that we use banks, actually their services, and we issue public tender, and when we select bank for 4 years with which we cooperate in 2 different ways, according to investors that we had. So for households, it's quite different cooperation with bank than for when investor is legal entity or municipality. So when a private investor, actually a household, apply for soft loan, then EcoFund just approves the proposed measure within this application form with a decision act. Then this investor goes to bank and actually arrange almost everything, signs the loan agreement, and in the end, the loan is also transferred, but not to the investor. It is transferred directly to contractor or supplier, where investment is concluded. And of course, bank manages loan till the last payment. This is for mainly 10 years. On the other side, legal entities and municipalities cooperate with EcoFund up till signing the loan agreement, and bank here goes just for transferring the loan assets to a contractor or supplier upon the EcoFund's order, and manages loan till the last payment.
Minutes.
Here we could have also 15 years of repayments. So this could be quite everything from me. Maybe just some interesting facts. Slovenia, well, this one, this first, where the buses are, this is from our capital, Ljubljana. And Ljubljana was the green capital of Slovenia, of European Union in 2016. These buses here presented are on methane and got grants and also loans from Ecofund. Here on the other side, we have 4 guys that manufactured a fossil-fueled car into one on electricity. We have grants also for that. And they had a project that with just one charging, they could run for 700 kilometers, and they achieved that goal. They ran from Ljubljana to Dubrovnik, and the goal was achieved. We also have a high superchargers on all highway resting stations, and by using car sharing service that uses only electricity cars, I got here from my home to the airport. So we are also quite using subsidies and grants for EVs. So that would be all from me.
Katarina, thank you. Perhaps still a little question from my side directly to you now. You said that in your country the uptake of electric cars is relatively limited. You're speaking about how many in numbers?
Well, as I was talking before with my colleague from Ministry of Infrastructure, that he has a little bit more specific numbers, but I think we have just now 700 EVs. But you should know that Slovenia has only 2 million residents, so we are in a progress.
Yeah. But you're fully equipped with the infrastructure for fast charging.
Yes, we are fully equipped with the infrastructure. We have quite good grants, but all we have to do is to change people's minds.
I think there's an important point that Ivars was also making before, this combination of fleet and infrastructure. I mean, that's the way you set up your project, Ivars, from your side. Still a little question also, Katarina, on your bus fleet. How have you been intervening in the bus fleet in Ljubljana?
Well, as you saw before, we are giving grants for these buses on methane, on compressed earth gas, I think. And that's all for now.
And the fleet is composed of? You have any idea?
Oh, no. Okay. Sorry.
All right. Good. Thank you for this additional information, Katarina, because I think it will complement a little bit what we will be discussing afterwards, because you are, as a fund, also really into, I would say, very small operations, household operations on the energy side, which, of course, is a completely, I would say, different part of what we are discussing here today. Nevertheless, I mean, the synergies that we would like to develop between transport and energy and other fields are for sure there. I mean, also when you look to hydrogen and the possibility for energy storage and so forth will be developed more in the future. So thank you also for your presentation. We'll come back perhaps in some questions afterwards. I turn to our third speaker, Neil Valentine from the European Investment Bank.
Thank you.
I think, Neil, you will complement a little bit the picture that has been set out here in 2 very specific examples by giving a bit broader picture on all the different elements, all the different tools that are available, which are quite wide, and as I said in the beginning, which are not yet fully crystallized. I mean, there are a number of aspects that are still developing, even almost on a day-by-day basis. But Neil, you are the man who are following this in detail in the European Investment Bank.
So, good afternoon, everybody. It's a bit dazzling up here, so forgive me if I'm sort of squinting. It's nothing personal. So the European Investment Bank, I hope you all now know, is the public bank owned by the member states of the European Union, and clearly our mission is to invest in sustainable and energy efficient transport, which is what I'm here for. We've been talking now to Harold and Stefan and various of the colleagues at MOVE for a couple of years about what we can do in this area. And those of you who follow the maritime sector will know that we did a green shipping instrument, and this is for the sulfur directive for the cleaner maritime zones in the Baltic and the North Sea. So we have been active for a while. The question has been for us really is about what can we do? What else can we do? Because there is at the moment not really a market. Not the way there is a market for, diesel vehicle technology. There's no off-the-shelf solution. And I think my friend Mr. Starkov from Riga explained to you in really quite a lot of detail what it took to actually make that first step. But what we're now seeing is we're seeing a lot of momentum building. We're seeing a lot of political momentum. We're seeing scientific research translating into early prototypes, into deployment of small numbers. But what I'm really interested in, of course, is deployment at scale. And for the bank, that's really where we have to end up. And the question is, how do we get there? And Harold and Stefan are fortunate that under the CEF, they have the financial instruments budget, and they have the ability to help with risk absorption, with effectively sort of helping you identify specific risks in the deployment. And they came to us and said, guys, what can you do? And we don't really know. And we spent 6 months kicking around a lot of ideas. And it transpired that actually we needed to do 2 or 3 things. We needed to concentrate on one place, one specific part of the transport world where we could make some progress. And we needed to disassociate the demand risk from the investments. And because bankers don't like demand risk, we don't want to be asked to take, a punt on how quickly something will develop. We want to know that it's a sure thing. So forgive us. So we went, we went into the bus world because buses are predominantly public transport. Public transport is a world that the EIB knows very well. We've worked with a lot of the different member states and their big cities for public transport. So this was somewhere we felt comfortable that we had the knowledge of the market and we could work with the stakeholders who were regular customers. So when we announced the so-called cleaner transport facility, that's a terrible slide. Well, it's better on the big screen. When we announced the cleaner transport facility, we had all these products. We had lending, we had blending, we had advisory, we had all these instruments, we had CEF, we have EFSI, we have ELENA, and it's bamboozling. We've now got the hub, and the question really became, what do we tell everybody? And eventually we decided that what we needed to tell you was that we were here to help, and that we had all these tools, and that we could help you to deploy cleaner transport. And effectively what we want to do is we want to target early stage projects where we can start to get business models that allow us to scale up. Now, the bus market is a good place to start. It's big, but it's not that big. It's not like private vehicles. I think there's probably something like 8,000 buses a year purchased in Europe. So this is a manageable size. It's cities predominantly dealing with this stuff. So these are public sector partners that we know well. And it meant that the Commission was also comfortable in targeting grant support or financial instrument support into this area, because it was something that clearly is a common good. So this is where we've started. And that's not to say that it's the only thing that we will do, but it's the thing we need to make an initial success of, and we need to show you all that there are ways of deploying alternative fuel vehicles. You could imagine, however, that you could do refuse collection, you could do taxis, you could do emergency vehicles that are, you could do all sorts of captive fleets in the public sector, even just the vehicles that district nurses and home helps use to move around your cities. All of these, bought by the public and the public sector for public sector use, could also be bought using alternative fuel, EV, hydrogen, whatever. So there is a huge scope under cleaner transport. It's just that we've decided to start with buses. Now, what can we do to help? Well, clearly we can give you loans, which is great, but you have to pay us back. We can give you advice, and I think probably advice is one of the most important things. We have a number of different tools for giving you advice, and again, this is what I was referring to earlier. But the multiplication of these acronyms. We love acronyms, but we've got the hub, which effectively is a front door for advice. You come to the bank, you don't particularly want to start with a discussion about your financing needs. You want to talk about your project and how you get it ready for financing. That's the hub. The hub is the front door. We have technical assistance for energy efficiency, Elena. We have I think it's 20 million a year in technical assistance. Elena is currently, the take-up is very good. And then we have the InnovFin program, which is the Horizon 2020 program, where we have a lot of early stage tools for people who are trying to be innovative, trying to deploy new technologies. So all these things are available. What else? Here we go. Elena, I've jumped ahead of my slides. The important thing with Elena is you have to be ready to implement. And this is why it's attractive to us, because we want to see investment. The Commission wants to see investment. The bank wants to see investment. Your member state governments want to see investment happening. So you have to have a reasonable sized project, and you have to be demonstrating energy efficiency. Now, if you don't make the investment, we take the grant back. So, clearly that's something that makes people think. And it can be a public or a private entity. The early Elena program was only for public entities. It's been extended to private entities as well. We are currently working on quite a lot of different proposals, but we've worked on proposals with the Danes, the Swedes, the Spanish, the Dutch, and I understand that a number of different countries following on. Under InnovFin, we have this is a really interesting collaboration actually between the bank and the Commission, because this is about taking really risky early stage technology, first of a kind, and putting it into the market, financing the first, it's not so much trial, but the first commercial use of a new technology. And the Commission have provided us with a 95% risk coverage for the first 3 years, which you can understand really gets you over that initial hump of skepticism from the market. This can be used for hydrogen technology, and it's one of the things that we're looking at how we can extend the budget envelope for, because it consumes a lot of grant because of this 95% risk coverage, so therefore it has to be something that we're really sure we want to do. I mentioned the green shipping to start with. Again, here this is there were two different tools. One's a lending, intermediated lending, and one's guarantees. The thing that I really want to talk to you about, though, is the need to get projects. And I think that the member states, the promoters, the different, the different parts of industry are starting to wrestle with how do you deploy these alternative fuels. And what What is different for me now, about 2 years into this process, is that I'm starting to see proper proposals from serious commercial players. We have some of the major financial institutions interested in how do they do leasing in this world. We have manufacturers coming to us asking how can they, can we support them doing leases for you to purchase buses from them. We are working with many cities around Europe who are saying, how can we take our existing operation and transform it? What can you do to help us? So we are very much at a discussion stage, but we're starting to see the early crystallization of the first projects. And that's really exciting because, we've been talking about this transformation for quite a long time now. And the banking world, frankly, has been quite skeptical about it. We've not EIB in particular, but the commercial banks have been like, yeah, this will take years to happen. But I think there is an acceleration happening, and I think as the cities show the way forward through public transport, and we start to see the regulatory pressure coming down from cities who ban vehicles, certain types of vehicles from city centres, and the manufacturers being subjected to carbon emission limits on their new vehicles, I think we're going to really start to see this hotting up. So the message from the EIB is, we have a whole load of instruments. We have the ability to tap into the Commission, to develop specific instruments with them. We've got the whole FC guarantee facility, which is a huge tool for the bank to be able to deploy. We are here to discuss with any of the serious promoters in your member states. If you're a city, if you're an operator, if you're a manufacturer, if you're a financial institution, we're very happy to talk to you about how we do this stuff. We are focused on buses to start with, but we are going to go wider than that. But the first place we want to make progress is in the bus world, because I think as Ivar's made very clear, it solves two problems. It solves an air quality problem, and it solves an energy an emissions problem. And these are two big of policy drivers for all of us. So with that, I'm going to stop. And if there are questions, very happy to take them.
Neil, thank you very much. I mean, you drew a perfect conclusion for me. I have no further work here as a moderator.
Sorry.
But that's perfect. Thank you for that. Indeed, the pace that we see of projects developing now is really increasing very rapidly. I mean, whether we talk about green shipping due to the standards for sulfur, for instance, in the Baltics or in the North Sea, or if we see, for instance, the air quality standards that have been obliging also now captive fleets to develop, and we from our side, from DG Move, will also come with the adaptation of our directive in that respect, that the Clean Vehicle Directive will be modified in its procurement procedures to accelerate and to facilitate and to cut out red tape in that directive. And of course we have the Alternative Fuels Directive, which will also be leading to an overview of what member states have been implementing over the past 2 years. They come up with their national plans, and we'll draw from there also what will be the next steps. Now, all of these lead to increasing projects, some of which, like you have been proposing, Ivars, which are on the front-runner side, with these very innovative trolley buses that have this double technology included in order to extend their range beyond the wire. And with a very innovative funding and financing on your side, combining research money with Connecting Europe facility money. We have had the proposal, or the explanations also from the fund in Slovenia, where you are already for 24 years active, and where you are also there available for the deployment of e-vehicles more and more, and in fact the fleet not following exactly the infrastructure at the moment in time still, and then all the different possibilities from the bank. And what it leads me to conclude, ladies and gentlemen, is that very often what is lacking is not the different possibilities to help you out with funding or financing, but the maturity of the projects. And I sometimes say to the audience, come up with your project and we'll find a solution for you. Because we have so many different solutions available that it is really not the problem that is there, but rather in the maturity of the projects and the good projects coming to us. Are there questions in the room, either to one of the speakers or to myself, where you have a project in your city or in your member state, or you are a project promoter and you would like to find out from Neil or from Ivas or from Katarina how to go about it? I cannot see you, but I would be very happy to, to hear if there are any questions. Yes, there is a gentleman in the middle of the room. I don't know whether somebody can bring him a mic. And when you speak, please stand up and briefly say your name and then the question to whom you would like to address.
Hello, Amit Yudan. I'm promoter of different projects on alternative fuels. And this is a question to Niels. Actually, we're now in a conference about the cohesion investments, and we have seen that innovation is quite challenging in other parts of Europe. So what are the thoughts in terms of the blending or other tools to make it more easy to take actually bigger risk in the places that actually need more support? So the combination of innovation, and not only in buses, but also in other modes of transport, including personal vehicles, is quite big because of the challenges you see in terms of forecasting what will be the number of users. But multiplying that on the cohesion creates new challenges. So do you actually see the EIB playing a role in these type of projects also in the cohesion at this current stage of the development of the technologies?
Thanks. That's quite a difficult question. I mean, the bank has a statutory requirement to invest in things that have an economic return, that are economically productive, and that are going to be sustainable. Clearly, that drives us to be slightly conservative. We're a bank after all, and we don't want to lose too much of our member states' money. Having said that, the ability to work alongside the Commission, who has grant money, gives us the possibility to find solutions to some of these problems. So I think it's up to the cohesion countries, if that's who you're particularly targeting, to come to us and say, we have a specific thing that we need dealt with, and we have to find solutions. I mean, I would just say that one of the things for the bank in the cohesion countries is that we've been hugely busy accompanying the implementation of the structural funds, of the DG Regio administered funds, which has kept the cohesion member states' authorities very busy. And that's been very classic infrastructure. So that may also explain why some of the more innovative things have been pushed down the priorities. Now, clearly that's not the case of Slovenia, who've already got superchargers on their network. And I'm not sure whether you even still qualify under the cohesion. I can't remember. Forgive me. Okay. But it is up to the member states. It's up to come and talk to us about these issues. I mean, we are demand driven. We try and find solutions for the problems that are brought to us, as well as doing a bit of crystal ball gazing and trying to give you things to help you as well. So I understand, I think, where you're driving at, but when something needs grant, it really needs grant. And when something is bankable, maybe a little bit of grant, can make the difference in making it financeable, if you like, by reducing the risk. But this is really where we're going to try and get to with the blending call process. And I think those of you who've been looking at the blending call, and we'll talk about that more tomorrow, will understand that the Commission is working in its existing financial regulation, and it has done its utmost to accommodate the idea of blending, using its existing rules. The bank has tried to, again, without compromising its governance, to align itself to that, and so that together we can do some interesting blending, pulling projects together and finding a grant that makes the difference to the financial profile, that lets us and commercial banks come in and finance it. And I think probably in the next MFF, you will see attempts to make that a smoother process, a more integrated process. But we're going to use the next couple of years to learn this, how to do this, and you'll have to put up with this while we make some mistakes.
Thank you, Neil. Well, but whilst making mistakes, we also do projects.
We do.
And for instance, to also partly answer your question, we are expecting and working at this moment, for instance, in the project in Poland, in Gdańsk Gdynia, with money from ELENA at this moment in time, and we have a very good expectation on that. And we have also many cohesion countries who are contacting us now for the blending call, where they would like to replace part of their captive fleet, especially in buses. In fact, 2 capitals and also Western European country capital, which we are expecting probably, until the deadline of the end of 14th of July to come forward. And so, indeed, we see the cohesion countries quite interested to take part fully in this blending call. Other questions, please? I cannot see, but yes, the gentleman here in front.
Въпросът ще задам на български.
I'll ask my question in Bulgarian. I can't ask it in English, so please put your headphones on. It is not easy to ask the question, and perhaps I will provide a brief comment and then ask my question. The comment is as follows. Don't you think? Of course, funding is important. It's key to find the funds. But there is even something that's more important, namely to invest the funds in the right way. You just mentioned the cleaner transport. That's important. No pollution from public transport. Okay. But we're not even talking about private cars. It's even worse there. No matter how clean it is, 3,000 people die in car accidents. There are even more people who get injured. There are families that suffer from all that, and so on. In 1991, I presented the idea of environmentally friendly transport. That was 1991. And nothing has been done in this direction whatsoever, ever since 1991. The cars, the motorbikes, even skating has not been changed. In the past, we used to get on public transport and just read our newspaper there, but we were just parasites. We did not contribute to traffic. While when you ride your motorbikes, you are an active parasite. Well, in the first case, you're a passive parasite. When you go cycling, you're not a parasite.
Въпросът ми е следния.
This was my comment. I said I would start with a comment and then ask my question. So my question is, don't you think that we have to think of an alternative first and foremost? In the Juncker plan, I see that there is a connection between ideas and those who generate ideas and those who can implement them. And this is very important. Let me just quote myself as an example. I'm 72 years old. I don't want to start a business. I was told to have a startup and then get electronic signature and so on. I have myself patented some inventions in the past, etc. But I'm not interested in all that. I am not a young man. I'm not a business person either. I belong to a generation that was brought up in a different manner, but I have ideas, and this world is always short of ideas. I'm not even after money. It is important to find the right ideas, to discuss them, and then take it from there. Thank you.
Thank you for your passionate story about the ideas that are needed, and I think to briefly reply from my side that the people here in this room, like Aivars, do not only have ideas but also realize them. I mean, Aivars, perhaps you want to say a word about how you are functioning in daily bringing to fruition, because I believe that in the end, in most of the years that we are here in this European Union, the end of the year has been better than the one before, and many of the ideas are implemented bit by bit. And nevertheless, even if we are sometimes passionate that we don't get fast enough, we do still make progress. And I believe that this is realized and demonstrated also by your project. But perhaps Aivars, I mean, you are a scientist and a practitioner.
It's hard to comment, honestly. It's more like I'm agreed that this is one of the serious issues of today that a lot of, I see, okay, I'm the young still, I hope, but I see the youngest generation of scientists, which we have just 10 years difference, they are now focused on, or let's say they are just blindly, most of the times they are just following today's rules. And what is, I think, important that we should be able to step out of the box and be able to see this overall picture from the side. And this is one of the reasons, let's say, for me as a scientist, because previously I was involved in a state research program, I was working for biomass thermochemical conversion, so nothing to do with transport. And this is exactly the sentence that finally, I love hydrogen, but I believe in physics and mathematics. And the figures are the same. It's more like if you are able to understand, one thing is the technical background and the structure, how it's functioning. And this is basically, I think, also the key to the EIB and let's say the DG Move, that if you are coming, that you are not just coming with saying, let's do this, this is good, this sounds good. No, you should be able to explain your idea in 2 minutes for a child. This is the basically main test, how we can test ideas. That's my opinion. And I had recognized it in a lot of the case because people are coming with strange questions. What we can do? Basically, first of all, you should be ready till the end, or till the last figure, be able to explain what you are coming for. I think that's the main prerequisite of all that.
Thank you, Aivars. We almost got philosophical at the end of the day, and I try to get back now to the firm territory of implementation of the TEN-T network. Katarina, anything you would like to add?
Well, you said we should stop philosophing, so maybe there's not my comment. Just maybe a question that I was hearing a lot around in transport sector is also philosophy. 150 years ago, we were using all horses. What will be using within 150 years? I don't think that any of us here knows. So, but what I do know is that we are in a very huge transition from private cars and public transport into something new that we are still working on together.
Thank you. That's indeed true. I mean, we are certainly transiting towards more mobility as a service. People are less and less having own car ownership, and will certainly evolve very, very quickly over the next years. Neil, before I leave you the final conclusion, like you also did before, ladies and gentlemen, I would be very happy to share my own feeling of this panel. What we have been trying to highlight to you is that projects are rolled out in order to have this innovative and sustainable transport all around Europe. And the demonstration we wanted to make with the panel was that there are tools available to you and that are, I would say, directly usable already today. I mean, there are too many projects around already that allow us to see how we can deploy alternative fuels, how we can deploy sustainable solutions today in Europe, whether they are in the more research side, like the one that Ivers was talking about, or that are already in a real rollout situation for certain of our technologies. And we would certainly welcome that any of you who have such, I would say, projects around, come and see the Commission, try to participate in the blending call, try to participate also in our regular calls, and otherwise can also, when they are more mature, go to the European Bank through the hub and make sure that they would then get the attention that they deserve to get to implementation. Because I agree with you, dear gentlemen of 72, that the more we can implement quickly over the next years, the better we are also able to deliver towards our citizens a future that is sustainable and that is working on the long term. Neil, perhaps the last word from your side before we then close off this session.
I mean, I think, you know, from the bank's point of view, we are an enabler. We don't promote projects. We support the people who do. You in the room, some of you are project promoters, some of you are government officials. It is up to you to bring these things forward to us, to use the tools that we can offer you, the financial support that the Commission can bring, the financing, we want it back please, from the EIB. You know, it's up to you, and we're here to help, and we're trying to find the areas where we can push to make a difference, to demonstrate that there are models to make things move forward. And yes, there are difficulties, and yes, you know, there will be failures and disappointments on the way, but actually there are going to be some great successes as well. And what I want to see is not Riga having 5 or 10 buses, hydrogen buses. I want to see them having everything hydrogen or electric, and that is the measure of success for us.
Thank you, Neil, with that beautiful conclusion. I would like to wish you all, ladies and gentlemen, a very pleasant evening here in Sofia. I would like to thank the speakers here on this podium and hope that you will be fresh again for a session tomorrow morning, which will be very concrete on the blending call with explanations how to participate in there. And thereafter to go to the final sessions of this conference that will be concluded then with our Commissioner and Minister at the midday here in Sofia. Have a very pleasant evening and see you again tomorrow morning. Thank you very much.